This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. If you caught yesterday's video, I discussed Prince Harry's security situation, and my gut feeling is that he's not going to be getting it back, especially given the ongoing fallout from the Epstein files, which is throwing a massive wrench into the monarchy's stability. The scandal's exposure of elite corruption is hitting 10 Downing Street particularly hard, making it highly unlikely that Starmer and Shabana would approve anything for him at this point. I think that ship's pretty much sailed. The Labour government is already treading on thin ice, and judging by their move yesterday to change the government logo, I think Harry's chances right now are toast. For a good while now, I've been harping on, ad nauseum, about the serious issues this UK prince on US soil has been entangled in since 2020. As I mentioned yesterday, we were all told by the media that a decision by the Home Office was supposed to come in January. And I said, well, that timing made total sense because the U.S. State Department was expected to give a status update literally around now. And sure enough, they just did that. And here's what they had to say. Pursuant to the court's March 31st, 2025 minute order, plaintiffs, the Heritage Foundation and Mike Howell, and defendant, the Department of State, respectfully submit this joint status report. The parties report as follows. Number 1. This case stems from a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request that plaintiffs submitted to the department for records regarding Henry Charles Albert David, also known as the Duke of Sussex, or Prince Harry. The department identified 517 potentially responsive records from the Bureau of Consular Affairs, 2 potentially responsive records from the Office of the Deputy Secretary of State, 271 potentially responsive records from the Office of the Legal Advisor, and 217 potentially responsive records from the Office of the Secretary. Now, if you don't know what those are, I did the status update back when it came out 60 days ago. Please go ahead and check that out to understand what all these documents mean. We were counting almost over 1,000 documents that they had been reviewing. The department proceeded to a responsiveness review of the documents identified in paragraph 3. The department completed its responsiveness, and since the last JSR, ECF number 12, completed deduplicating the responsive records in the final pre-processing phase. The department reports there are 307 records consisting of 2,487 pages of potentially responsive material to be processed. At this point, the department has begun reviewing and processing the documents. The department anticipates being able to make an initial interim production, in this case in March, and commence rolling productions as available thereafter. Pursuant to the court's March 31st, 2025 minute order, the parties will file their next joint status report in 60 days on April 13th, 2026. So what we have here, folks, is almost 2,500 pages alone in the State Department on Prince Harry. So what I'm assuming is going on right now is that these 2,500 pages or 307 document files are going through for its final processing, meaning redaction of private information before they get released. So not only do we have the Epstein files, but we also now have coming up the Sussex files. I've been telling you this now for a while, that the storm is coming, and it's not going to be too much longer before all of it comes crashing down. Pay close attention to this exchange between Jim Jordan and Pam Bondi from today's hearing.
Madam Attorney General, anytime you need a break, just let us know. If not, we'll just keep going. The chair is now recognized for 5 minutes. Madam Attorney General, you're not allowed to exercise your constitutional rights in a way that tramples on someone else's, are you?
No.
No, you can't do that. I mean, you have a right to petition the government under the First Amendment. That doesn't mean you can come into this room and start screaming at Mr. Raskin or me or anybody else and disrupt a congressional hearing. You have a right to protest on the street, but that doesn't give you a right to go into the Capitol and disrupt Congress. Something these guys talk about every day. You can't do that. So when Don Lemon said that he was exercising his First Amendment free press rights, freedom of the press rights, that's not really accurate because he was trampling on other individuals' rights. Is that true?
Chairman, we will always protect our churches and the freedom of religion. And yes, that's accurate.
First right mentioned under the First Amendment,
Right.
freedom of religion, freedom to practice your faith the way you think the good Lord wants you to, right?
That's right, under the federal government.
And isn't it true that Mr. Lemon met at a shopping center with the rioters who entered City's church in St. Paul, met with them prior to marching to the church?
He did meet, and this is a pending case right now, so I will only stick to what is in the four corners of the unsealed indictment, if I could, Chairman.
Yeah, I'm
There's a lot more that will come out. But under the four corners of the indictment, yes, he did. They had an operation called Operation Pull-Up. They said they were gearing for a resistance. They met in a parking lot and they caravanned to a church on a Sunday morning when people were worshiping together.
And Mr. Lemon said that he live streamed before entering the church with the rioters. Didn't he say we're going to head to the operation? Didn't he say this he said this on camera, is that right?
Yes, Chairman,
Yeah.
and more.
That he was in Minnesota and that, as you said, they were gearing up for an operation. So you can't do that. This is why this is, I think, so important that this guy be held accountable, and I think why you guys have charged him and indicted him. Moving to a second subject here. Will John Brennan be indicted? Mr. Brennan lied to the committee, which you're not supposed to do, last Congress, and we deposed him. He definitely, 18 U.S.C. 1001, we're all familiar with it. He lied to the committee, and the committee, the Congress, and I think the country would like to know if, in fact, he's going to be indicted for lying. And here's why it's so important. I'll give you a chance to respond. Here's why it's so important. It wasn't just that he lied to us, it's what he lied to us about. He lied to us about when all this weaponization against the President of the United States started. He lied to us about the dossier, and specifically what role the dossier played in the intelligence community assessment. Because we know back when President Trump was first elected, first term, this is when it all started, which led to the Mueller and to the impeachment and to the Jack Smith and all the stuff that's happened in the last decade.
We can't forget that also that's when the deep state asset Meghan Markle came into the picture. They were all in on it. This was always about preventing Trump getting back into the Oval Office. And now you all understand why.
But it began here, and he lied to Congress about the role he played. And I just want to read a couple of things he said during that deposition before I give you a chance to respond. Mr. Brennan, when asked a question, said the CIA was not involved at all with the dossier. He said it was their purview, FBI's purview, and not ours. He also said the CIA was very much opposed to having any reference or inclusion of the Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment. Well, that's interesting because declassified information that was declassified this past summer by the CIA says something entirely different. It says, Brennan, I want to put this one up if we have it. It says, Brennan ultimately formalized his position in writing, stating that, quote, this is released by the CIA Director Ratcliffe. My bottom line is that what I believe that information warrants inclusion in the report. He was further asked by an CIA official. The same officer said when he approached the director and asked that the director refused to remove it after being explained this wasn't good, with the dossier's many flaws, he said, yes, but doesn't it ring true? So this is John Brennan using that document to change intelligence community assessment, which I think led to all the stuff we've seen over the last decade. And I think this committee in the country, Congress in the country, would like to know if Mr. Brennan is going to be indicted.
What I can confirm is that we have received a referral from you, Chairman Jordan, to investigate John Brennan. His attorneys have made some public statements, but the department is still bound, of course, by our longstanding policy of not discussing matters. What I will say today, I can't confirm nor deny whether there is a pending investigation, but what I will say is no one is above the law.
Mr. Chairman,
Weaponization has ended.
Now, this is my personal opinion, but I believe that the reason why they didn't protect Andrew or Lord Peter Mendelsohn is because the UK, in collaboration with the Democrats, did Trump dirty. At this point, there is nothing anybody can say to me to convince me that the royal family did not know what Harry and Meghan were really coming over here to do in 2020. Remember, we were told that the Queen gave Harry and Meghan a year to wink, wink, try it out. And I do believe that the institution thought that Harry and Meghan were going to come back after the election. But then Meghan went rogue. And that's when all of this flipped upside down.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why that clip was important to pay attention to is because of what happened 3 days ago with the resignation of Morgan McSweeney. Not only did he help Starmer get into office and was chief of staff, but he also was helping Kamala Harris's campaign. But let's not forget, he also was the architect and founder of the Center for Countering Digital Hate and was very close to working with Imran Ahmed. Now, if you don't recall, Imran Ahmed was one of the 5 that the State Department issued visa bans and getting kicked out of this country, and now decides, oh, my free speech is being violated, and suing the U.S. government. So coming from the court case that's now ongoing, tying up American tax dollars and being wasted here is the reason for why the United States is kicking this guy out. It says under Section 4C of the INA, an alien is deportable from the United States if the Secretary of State has reasonable grounds to believe the alien's presence or activities in the United States would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. Are defined 2 U.S. LPRs, meaning lawful permanent residences. And there's one, I believe that was Claire Melford, and then the other one is Imran Ahmed. Both are UK nationals. Ahmed, who leads an NGO involved in policing disinformation, has advocated for foreign regulatory action that negatively impacts American companies and citizens, and has been involved in efforts to pressure U.S. companies to restrict speech of Americans and demonetize disfavored American media sources. Based on the activities of, I believe it's Melford, and Ahmed, their presence in the United States has potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States, as they undermine the foreign policy objective of the administration to protect freedom of expression and roll back domestic encroachments on speech. Consistent with those foreign policy objectives articulated in the May 2025 3C Policy and Executive Order 1415, American First Policy Directive to the Secretary of State, the foreign policy of the United States protects core American interests and American citizens. Protecting the freedom of expression of United States citizens is a core U.S. interest, as is defending U.S. sovereignty from foreign encroachment. Given the administration's priority and success in rolling back domestic encroachments on free speech, it is especially critical as a foreign policy objective to ensure these gains are not undermined by foreign officials and individuals, like Prince Harry. Regular people don't have almost 2,500 pages on them with the State Department unless they are something so-called special. It goes on to say, Imran Ahmed, CEO of Center for Countering Digital Hate, CCDH, United Kingdom, Ahmed was a key collaborator with the Biden administration on weaponizing the national security bureaucracy to censor U.S. Americans and pressure U.S. companies into censoring. And his group advocates for foreign regulatory action that extraterritorially impacts American citizens and companies. Ahmed is a UK national and a US LPR. Ahmed successfully led efforts to lobby Google to remove ads from the Federalist and Zero Hedge. He is most known for his infamous Disinformation Dozen report, in which CCDH called for platforms to remove the accounts of American anti-vaxxers, including HHS Secretary Kennedy. Shortly thereafter, 12 Democrat attorneys general sent letters to X and Facebook citing the report. White House officials in the previous administration pressured platforms to take action against CCDH's Disinfo Dozen. More recently, leaked documents from CCDH show the organization listed Kill Musk's Twitter and trigger EU and UK regulatory action as priorities. CCDH advocates for both the UK Online Safety Act and EU Digital Services Act, DSA. Ahmed was listed as a signatory in Hate Aid's petition calling on the European Commission to take action to ensure access of platform data to researchers under the DSA. Now, as I've been telling everybody, Harry is up to his neck in this shit. Now, you think about Imran Ahmed and his involvement, it's fairly straightforward. But with Prince Harry and what he had been doing since he landed here, it's a whole another level. And you're going to have to trust me on this one. This is not just about censorship. Otherwise, they would have issued this same visa ban to him and kicked him out. There's a lot more to this, and I think many of you understand and know because you've been following me and we've been talking about it. Don't be surprised if we see headlines coming out where Harry is planning to go to the Middle East to visit Eugenie because of the tough time that she's having over this scandal. Don't be surprised if we start seeing those headlines of Meghan thinking that she can make a comeback from the UAE. Currently, right now, they're not doing anything with Archwell. In my opinion, I think that is now going to go dormant while they figure out where they're going to run to, because it's all catching up to them. And I really do hope that something gets done before the midterms. But anyway, it's starting to heat up, and I can't wait. But what do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.